This is one of the shows I've been waiting for.
The path to getting to free cash flow, about 13 to 18 months right now. That means that you have to have a war chest in order to have a successful game.
This is one of the shows I've been waiting for because it's great to talk about what's here now, but it's so much cooler to talk about what happens when characters that you know in games and elsewhere stop being static IP and start becoming literally a living social presence. It's what we're talking about is the emergence of character AI agents. And that was a new one for me, but I have a new guest who's going to tell me all about it because you are a woman. You are a category curator is what I would call you, Rebecca. Co-founder, CEO of Saga. This fascinates me. Character AI agents. So let's just start there, right? We're thinking about gaming, but it's much, much bigger. But first, of course, we have to talk about it. This is a category story. What is it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, Peggy Ann, thanks so much for having me. Character AI agents are exactly as you described. So they are characters that we know and love from gaming, film, TV, even sports brands and consumer brands brought to life as AI agents. So the AI agents in this case are trained on the background, the lore, the story of that particular character. But imagine Mickey Mouse, imagine it's that character come to life, and you can talk to it through text, but also through voice and video chat as well. It really depends on the wishes of the customer in the studio that we are working with. And we're able to bring that character to life to the extent that they would like. We'll get into the use cases that we have focused on for these character agents in a bit, because we're not the only ones doing character-based agents, but I do think that we have a pretty unique perspective on both the synthetic relationships that users form with these character agents, as well as what these character agents are ultimately good for in terms of commercial purpose, not just something really fun and new and exciting for users to experience, but what benefit do they actually bring to the people who created them?
I agree. There are others out there, and I was looking around, but I was struck by the depth of what you're doing with your character agents. You said you train them on the lore, and I have the feeling that this is about being more than just a character or a licensing question. I had the feeling it was really like a relationship layer, but that could just be me saying that you have a USP that maybe you do or don't. So indulge me. What would you say you're doing differently?
Yeah, Peggy Ann, you hit the nail on the head. Our philosophy for character agent training is nail the synthetic relationship. Nail the synthetic relationship between the character and the user. And from there, you can take that character agent in multiple directions. The first character agent that we launched is actually Willie from Trivia Crack. So Trivia Crack is the #1 trivia game in the world. It has about 800 million downloads throughout its life. And so most people in the world have at least experienced this game, if not still have it on their phones. And the purpose of Willie was really to drive additional awareness to the Trivia Crack game, as well as encourage downloads, reactivate users who may have it but haven't played it in a long time, and just generally pioneer something and have fun with the industry. Willie was meant to do all those things. So for those of you who are familiar with the space, everything that I just described, you probably recognize that immediately as some form of user acquisition or performance marketing. And that's absolutely right. That is Willie's job. However, how does Willie accomplish that? So in the first week that we launched Willie, he already reached 90% engagement on his activity. It's very high. The reason we were able to reach those numbers, we've definitely looked at the user interactions. We have analyzed the engagement itself and what form that takes with the users. So what we were able to conclude is, first off, 90% engagement, what does that actually mean? It means that as Willie is going across social media and inserting himself into people's comment threads, replies, etc., 90% of the time he's getting peak likes on that particular thread, and people are continuing to engage with him in conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's become clear in those interactions is that the users refuse to believe that Willie is not a person. So we thought that we had made it clear because Willie, if you look at him, he's a spinny trivia wheel, spinny multicolor trivia wheel. It's clearly a cartoon. But such is the internet that people assume, oh, somebody just used that as their avatar.
Avatar, yeah.
But there is an actual person behind it. No, there's no person behind it. I can assure you that Willie is purely AI. For any sort of original posting that he does on Trivia Crack socials, yes, there is content moderation. So the Trivia Crack team will approve all the posts before they go out. Mm-hmm. Anything where Willie's just striking up conversations with people across socials, that actually does not go through content moderation because the volume is too high. And so he's just out there in the wild talking to people. And it's really, again, that synthetic relationship between him and the users that is unlocking a lot of possibility for Trivia Crack. And so we've taken the same model and applied it to all the other agents that we're working on. When you hook the user and they start to see you as part of their lives, whether it's on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, even on a monthly basis, that is incredibly powerful.
I'm blown away. I'm thinking about the 90. I'm thinking about the expansion.
Yeah.
I want to get there, but I think for the audience, just to help everyone stay on the same page, because when we first spoke in prep, I was like, well, what happens? Because we had those examples a long time ago. What was it? The beginning of text, you mentioned a pizza in your text. It's going to highlight the word pizza. You're going to get an ad for pizza. These are conversations. Yeah. How does it stay conversational, and where does Willie come in?
I always tell our development team and our creative teams, not that they need a lot of reminding. Hey, we are all consumers of social media. We are all consumers of online content, digital marketing. We don't need focus groups to understand what is and isn't effective. So the example that you just gave, Peggy Ann, of you highlight a word and then all of a sudden you get an ad for that word, or God forbid you're talking to an LLM and you're talking about something incredibly personal, and then all of a sudden they display an ad for that thing that you're talking about. It feels very intrusive. And honestly, unless you really, really need to engage with that software tool, which, let's be honest, no one terrifically needs to engage with a make-believe character, people are going to walk away. So we have to be very, very careful about that. Now, the thing about social platforms is that they have a built-in restriction, which is actually a very helpful challenge and guardrail just for us in our development. And that is that the majority of these social platforms, at least for public posting, ban any sort of sharing of links by agents. So they have had trouble with that in the past with AI slop and chatbots. And so they've banned that activity, or at the very least, they will shadow ban that account, which is almost as bad. So they are forcing the agents to really rise to the challenge of having some kind of meaningful conversation. And so for us, generally how the flow goes is no, we do not open with, hey, I'm Willie from Trivia Crack. That is
the game.
Cute.
Yeah.
That's not cute. So generally, Willie finds users that are within the demographics that we're trying to target, or they're talking about trending topics that we're interested in, or they're talking about, things that would suggest that they might have fun playing a trivia game. Mm-hmm. And then when Willie finds that post, he will just begin to engage. So for instance, if he sees that there's a travel blogger who just came back from a fabulous trip and is just detailing every, little coffee shop that he went to, then Willie will insert himself in that comment thread and say, hey, I'm a coffee fanatic too. We continue to calibrate sentiment, see if people actually respond to that. Generally they do, because again, oh, cool. Who's this new person who showed up to the chat? And from there, Willie can continue to interact. We do try within a certain number of interactions to go ahead and introduce hey, maybe we can play a trivia game together, or hey, maybe, we can continue this in DMs. That generally is the flow. And then that's when, I mean, once you get into the DMs with users, that's when you have them. So yes, absolutely. It is not meant to function as traditional advertising, which is really brute force of eyeballs, and it's a numbers game of expanding your funnel so that you get to conversion. This is really about fostering those relationships.
And that's so important because all the marketing we're talking about, the top of the funnel engagement is still built
Yeah,
in thinking around LTV. So there's nothing that like UA is not what it used to be. And this is one of the
right.
things you're assisting here. I'm curious because I'm just thinking all of the studios,
Yeah.
brands, agencies, people listening in are going to be saying like, wow, do I see a fit? But let's stay with the games
Yeah.
and share with me sort of like what that meant for talked about engagement 90%, not the
Mhm.
numbers of like what did it actually convert to, but if you
Yeah.
were looking at those numbers, you're the business person in the company and you're looking at other KPIs. Where did you deliver on?
So, what we know we have is brand awareness and engagement with the community, the players, the fans. In terms of conversion into game downloads, so I would say that we do perform at a higher level than brute force UA purchasing of ads across popular platforms like Meta or Google, or going through the app love in channels. But the volume is lower. So that is where the product currently sits, is we don't reach out to as many people, because again, these are all conversations. It's not just showing an ad in a game, or in a particular website that you're visiting. These are actual conversations, but the conversion rate is quite high. And so you're looking at a smaller pool, but conversion is above average for what ads perform.
And it takes a while. You have to spark the conversation. You have to continue the conversation. How does Willie sort of like continue that conversation? It has to evolve, it has to
Yeah.
develop, and it has to understand where it left off and where it picks up. How does that
Mhm.
work?
Yeah, so the very basic thing that we had to nail was memory.
Mm,
So for any particular platform that Willie was talking with a user on, we had to make sure that Willie, at the very least, had memory for that particular platform. So if you were talking with Willie in Instagram DMs, then Willie remembers everything that you've told him in that DM.
yeah.
Now, the trick is cross-platform memory. And so if, because Willie's deployed on Insta and X, the agents that are coming up are deployed across even more social media channels. And if a user tells an agent something on X, they should be able to remember that when they interact with
Mhm.
a user again on Reddit, let's say.
Yeah.
So that is something that we're working on, is cross-platform memory. But first and foremost, Willie's got to remember what you've told him. The other thing that's interesting is, clearly for any sort of public communications, we want Willie to be very compelling as a character, but no one wants to be that person talking to themselves in a comment thread. That's not super effective. So after a certain time, Willie's going to stop the interactions there, again, just to keep it natural.
Yeah.
But DMs are a place where, because you are in a DM channel, you can talk much more freely. And
Mhm.
what we found with our agents, actually without us even really prompting them, is a DM can go both ways. So you as the user, you can ping Willie with something, but Willie can also just ping you. If you haven't talked to Willie in a day or so, he'll just check in and say, hey, I remember the last time we talked, you were having a rough day. Like, how are things? I don't want to say this categorically because I think it's still quite early, but our suspicion is that because the relationships are so high touch, we might be leaning more towards being able to really increase the engagement with whales and sort of high value customers, and really make sure that we can maximize the time that they spend with any particular IP. That's sort
Mhm.
of where we suspect things are going. But again, it's only
Yeah.
been about 2 weeks or so since Willie
Yeah.
launched, so I don't want to say too much. We have more agents coming that'll give us better data on this. But just on initial patterns, we suspect that the way we've trained the agents is going to lead to that outcome.
And I understand that people would see it and think, ah, Avatar,
Mhm.
I've been doing this for over 20 years, and I can remember at
Yeah,
the very start there were operator portals, and people would tell me that they thought that the mobile operators, because the operator portals at the time, they would rearrange on your phone to suit your
yeah.
interests, and your friend's phone would look very different. And they really thought there's like, someone back there moving them around. So I get it how we can get very confused by technology. It seems magical. So there must be someone behind the curtain. Obviously, there isn't, but
Yeah.
what is it that tells people again, in case they forget? I mean, I forget. I named my AI, right? It has a
Yeah.
nickname now, but I forget what I'm
Yeah.
dealing with. It's
Yeah.
helpful. I've said, hey, got a name. You spark creativity. I'll call you Spark. So
Yeah.
it is
Oh, nice.
officially
Yeah.
Spark.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we forget, or we have a tendency to be sort of hardwired to give human attributes to objects. I remember when Siri came out, people wanted to date it, right? Um,
Yeah.
what's happening here to just make certain that people don't misunderstand
Mhm.
Willie, and don't misunderstand also what Saga is building?
So every original post that was generated by Willie for the main feed of a particular game, film, TV show, or brand that we're working with is going to be labeled AI content. That's just the rules for any social channels. However, the conversations between the agent and a user are actually not labeled AI. And so, what we make sure to do is to sign off every single post with that character's name. So hopefully that is enough of a marker for people to know that this is an agent that you are talking to. It's not a real person. I mean, the quality of the agent is such that you find the conversation very compelling.
Mhm.
But we're also aware of the environment in which we've launched, in which there are lots of chatbots. There are lots of videos, that seem quite realistic, but they're actually AI generated, and they are disseminating misinformation. Unfortunately, instead of people just not trusting these social platforms or becoming just more aware, educating themselves about whether something is, AI slop or AI lies or the truth, people just sort of like confuse it all. And so for us, we think that the trust factor between the agent and the user is really down again to the quality of the relationship, the quality of the conversation. If we continue to make that agent as smart as possible so they don't hallucinate, and they know full knowledge of the IP that they come from, if we continue to make that agent very empathetic, again, have that great memory track record of remembering what it is exactly the user has told them, then that should really help. But it's one of those things where at the same, on the one hand, we think about our product and the integrity of the product and the quality of the experience for the user. But on the other hand, I think the challenge is really differentiating ourselves because of the environment in which we are launching. It's just there's a lot of bad AI content out there. I won't lie. So yeah, I just have to break through that noise.
It's also very interesting with the memory aspect because, again, looking at the market, there are a lot of chatbots. There are ones that are really obvious what
Yeah,
they are because
yeah,
they're so bad. But, the memory, I think that's going to
yeah,
be very interesting. And at some level, the cross platform as you evolve
mhm,
that, because that seems to me, from a marketing mind, to get
yeah,
around all of those hoops and barriers of understanding that we're talking to the same user on a different platform.
mhm,
We have our, user level ID and all of
yeah,
that. That's not
yeah.
that's not the way it works. So this
Mhm.
may be a workaround, or am I reading too much into it?
Yeah, yeah. So it's definitely, AI is able to do a lot, but
Hmm.
if there is no, quote unquote, matching of a user to a particular ID for that studio or that company, then
Right.
it's not an immediate thing that the agent acts on. The agent is not able to say, well, I spoke to this user on Insta, and they seem to sort of be this other person on X.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to assume that it's the same person. I'm going to start like talking about all these secrets this person has told me. That's not
Right.
how it works. That's not safe at all.
Okay.
So it's one of those things where it does take a little bit of time, unless the company already has that information. And we're
Okay.
actually quite surprised by the number of companies that do have that information. So they do have a great deal of information in any given user or customer profile. It's just a
Mhm.
matter of leveraging that info. And previous to this, there was just no good way to do that elegantly. You know,
Yeah.
to target the same user for any given campaign across the social media platforms that that user is using is really, really difficult. But in this case, you do have that touch point in
Yes.
the agent, and they're able to deliver that cross-platform experience. But yeah, it's one of those things where we warn brands AI can do a lot, but it's not able to assume right off the bat that
Hmm.
users have this particular identity across all the platforms. If there's a way for the brands to confirm that with us ahead of time, that's great.
Yeah.
If not, it just takes a little bit of time to
Yeah.
draw that information out from the users.
I think that's a really important distinction because if they do have
Yeah.
first party data, happy days. This can
Mhm.
be that connective tissue we've been talking about for
Right.
2 decades of a conversation that is always handed off to the next conversation. That was the whole idea. It's
Yeah.
interesting. It's interesting for me that the natural first home for this category was games. That's where
Mhm.
you started.
Yeah.
Why is that? Why was that the smartest place to prove this?
So gaming does suffer from the user acquisition problem, probably worse than any other industry that we've seen. And it's also the nature of how gaming works nowadays. So you would think, because we are working with characters, we would start with entertainment. But
Yeah.
entertainment is quite different. Entertainment has their own marketing methods. And what we found is really the only space for character agents in entertainment currently is to pay for a subscription to talk to a character you really like. So there are several companies that do that. There is a limit to how much users will pay or how many users will pay for regular interaction with a particular character.
Hmm.
Um, so we did not think that that was going to be a problem, honestly, that needed a ton of solutions. Um, now, we look at gaming. So in gaming, the user acquisition costs annually are around 200 billion. Top line revenue in gaming is around 116 billion. So it's quite a shortfall there. And that's not to say that everybody's bankrupt. What that means is that the path to getting to free cash flow, what we call like return on ad spend for games, is over a year.
Yeah.
So about 13 to 18 months right now. That means that you have to have a war chest in order to have a successful game.
That's
But
right.
even if you had that war chest, you are paying out a lot to the ad networks in order to acquire users. So there's a lot of inefficiency in the system. And honestly, a lot of the difficulty that you see in the gaming industry right now with consolidation and studio shutting down is owing to the user acquisition costs. It's not because the developers are not putting out good content or that people are less interested in gaming. It's really the UA cost. If it is the case that you're spending 200 billion as an industry because you are brute forcing it with ad spend, then you have to find a way to bring organic acquisition to the forefront. And previously, that meant hiring an army of community managers or people to do one-on-one outreach, which is not scalable. So with AI, we have the possibility to now do organic acquisition at scale. Now, we did not want to put out generic chatbots, and because we, had that background in training these characters in a really compelling way, it was just a really good, obvious fit for these studios to use the IP that they've already created to do organic acquisition on their behalf. But really, it started off with recognizing that the problem was really severe. It was really breaking the industry in many ways, and this was a good way to attack that problem. So the numbers are early. Having said that, we are seeing a
Mhm.
lot of promise. And I do think that it's not going to be a wholesale replacement of advertising, obviously. But I do think that that 200 billion number is going to come down significantly because we figured out some way in which to do effective organic acquisition.
So you've done the one, you've got more coming.
Yeah.
What is going on that you can share? Something in the pipeline, or what we might be seeing sooner than later? Because Willie is out there, out in the world. It means that you can launch these. Maybe you're learning to launch them faster or differently. Something is happening because it's evolving. Where is it? Where is it going? What can you share?
We are preparing to roll out agents that are from games, but they are also from recognizable IP. So these are instances in which the games are based on really well-known movies or TV shows, cartoons, etc. And so that was our way of seeing whether the value of the IP was going to help significantly with this organic acquisition. We highly suspect that it will. And honestly, this will be the first time that a lot of very iconic IPs are coming to life as AI agents. So we're very excited about that. Most of those agents are going to be coming out over the summer because that's when the consumer shows happen. So the conference circuits, the big releases and announcements of games, also a lot of blockbusters from Hollywood come out around that time. So that's when those agents will be released. So we are working on the second version of this platform already. And the big difference is that the second version is meant to be self-serve. So right now we
Yeah.
are training the agents. We have the distribution with the studios. And so it's our in-house team that is making all of this happen. However, we would like to empower other developers to do this themselves. So it doesn't have to go through the Saga team. So that's the next big release of this platform. I do think that the business problem of user acquisition, performance marketing in general for consumer brands is the bigger problem to solve. And that's what we're going to focus on for quite a while. However, talking to game developers, their instinct is not to solve user acquisition. That's just not who they are. They're not marketers by profession. They are developers. And so they want to create great in-game experiences. And so every time that we talk about deploying character agents for them, they're excited about better UA, but everyone will always ask, how do I deploy it in the game? So how do I have agents as NPCs, for instance? How do I have agents as in-game companions for the players? So that is a much more complicated and custom development. So we're going to take our time on that. And there's not a lot of evidence right now that there's a huge market for that. Any sort of hesitation or concerns that users and players currently have with respect to use of AI in gaming, I think that's going to start falling away as people get more used to having AI agents as personal assistants, for instance, or as people start to have good synthetic relationships with these character agents, they will get much more comfortable and familiar with good AI. And that will lead to more inclusion of AI-based content in these games. But that's for the future. Right now, we're really solving the UA problem.
I'm just even staying
Yeah.
with the UA problem because it is so big, and
Yeah.
it is, it is what is taking down so many studios, and
Yeah.
colleagues of mine in the mid-sized studios are also,
Yeah.
this is going to hit them too. So the self-service is going to
Mhm.
be really helpful because I'm trying to get my head around, what someone would be able to do. I'm imagining this would run sort of completely parallel to everything else. This will be probably what intent-based targeting, affinity, relationship building, targeting. I mean, it's going
Yeah.
to, they're still going to have their platforms and their
Yeah.
ad partners, but
Yes.
this is going to be different.
Yeah.
What is it going to be like? What do you build for? Is it going to have a different dashboard? Are we going to be like this totally different silo, this totally different tech stack?
I would say that the magic in the product is definitely in the quality of the agents. So the way in which we train the agents and how we continue to update them over time with new content, new facts that come through from that game or that brand. etc. But everything around it is probably just as important, including that admin dashboard that you're talking about. So it's interesting because I think when we first released these agents, what the People Studio side or company side were expecting was a UA dashboard. So it would show, how many interactions, what is the conversion, et cetera. And our dashboard definitely does feature that information, but it also includes the logs of the conversations. It starts to get at sentiment analysis for the conversations. You definitely start to build profiles of the users that the agents are talking to. And so it's different. I would say it's a much richer experience. You can get a lot of data. And as you start to scale this out and the agent is talking to not hundreds of people a day, but thousands, and tens of thousands of people a day, that's when you can start to get really meaningful data about what's working for building relationships with your users, with your communities and fans. And so from a business person's perspective in a company, they satisfy the immediate need of seeing top line results. But at the same time, they recognize they have this treasure trove of data that they did not have before. And to the extent that they have campaigns for things like, download this game, that's a very simple one, but, buy a battle pass, or would you be interested in these in-game purchases? Or perhaps there's some sort of exclusive event, track, tournament, or whatever that your higher value players tend to funnel into. Is there a way to get people to join that, especially if they've been playing the game for a while, they just didn't know about these opportunities or no one really reached out to them, then this is a good way to engage them. So it's really starting to change, I think, how UA people think about doing their job. So we recognized, everyone on the Saga team has done multiple startups at this point. We recognize that we have to solve their immediate pain point. But in doing so, there is additional room for really expanding how people think about solving the problem.
They're going to need things like this. This is the evolution of marketing, of optimizing acquisition, CRM. I mean, it's it. I think it's just like across the organization, really.
Well, we're starting to work with pretty senior people at these studios just because they're interested in this AI product as an innovation that they would like to have. But in terms of the direct contacts that we work with on a day-to-day basis at these companies, it does tend to be user acquisition, performance marketing, et cetera. And what they're finding very quickly is that this is cross-functional. And so even if the product starts with them, the deployment starts with them, other people within the organization, so their colleagues start to see uses pretty quickly. And honestly, we've been emphasizing UA and performance in this conversation, but the agent needs to nail the relationship. Once they nail the relationship, you can take it in multiple directions, including just straight community management. So if an agent is in a Discord server, for instance, or the agent is in a WhatsApp community group, that is not so much acquisition as it is engagement with your users. And it's not as simple and definitely not as flat as just a bot that's available 24/7. This is really one of the tentpoles of your community management because for a lot of these studios, they have very talented community management teams that have already done a lot with the people that they oversee. But there's nothing like having a character come to life, and we see different results because of that. So it can be used for community engagement as well. I'm sure people will start to make UGC off of this. So they will be talking to the agents and then repurposing them for some sort of user-generated content, which will further expand the reach for that particular campaign.
The whole time I'm thinking, the whole idea was we need to move from interruption to interaction. We've been talking about it.
Yeah.
This does it. This does it. Is this what you set out to do?
Honestly, not really. I'll be very honest with you. I mean, the motivation behind character agents was actually just seeing the possibility of creating really cool technology. The issue that we saw with earlier platforms like Characters AI, for instance, or even Replica, is that it's really what's, quote unquote, fan fiction. And that's fan fiction is great. We love passionate fans. Having said that, there's no direct input from the original studio or the creative team that is keeping this character alive and then carrying the character forward into the future. And so I thought that there would be a great way to really open up a new category of entertainment, gaming, and content with having these character agents come to life. Now, that's the technology challenge of creating really compelling agents that are lifelike, that are very nuanced in their personalities, that are able to stay within brand guidelines. If you put hard restrictions on these agents, they cannot curse or talk about religion or politics, etc., the agents will observe those rules. So it was just a very interesting technology product to build, is really great character agents that offer the best synthetic relationships. Now, this is honestly where a lot of startups kind of like aren't able to bridge the gap. They're not able to actually make it to the other side. And that is, they have a really cool product, they have a really cool piece of technology, but there's no use case for it. And so we did not want to find ourselves in that position. Having gotten to the first prototypes of these agents, we really asked ourselves, where can this be deployed effectively? Where can we actually solve pain points and not just, put something out there that people would enjoy, but it's ultimately not offering a real benefit, and therefore it's not going to scale.
Yeah, it's going to be a novelty, but it's not going to
have
any staying power.
Correct. Yeah, that's exactly right. We thought to ourselves, wait a second. Instead of just having these character agents talk to your player base or talk to new users as a novelty, why not actually put the agents to work? Why not have the agents strike up conversations, really hook these users in? And then from there, you can offer the link to download the game. You can offer battle passes. You can offer purchases of in-app game assets. There are many ways in which you can leverage this agent once they're able to, again, establish that relationship. But that's really how it evolved. So did I think that this would be the way in which the character agents would potentially reach scale? No, but it's been fun. The way that most studios express it to us is, I really want to play with my new toy. And then it's your new toy.